got a new type of quarry specifically designed for terracotta. Terracotta has a slightly lower blast resistance than like stone, and this is designed to just let the items fall into an item stream. And I had to specifically design the geometry of this so that the items could actually drop and the TNT wouldn't hit the wall, and it would be basically 100% reliable when it's going through terracotta. So I'll let that run while I'm showing you this. So this is also using the 1.7.2 terrain generation, and you'll notice that this is there's no stone in here. Like in more recent versions, the stone would continue all the way up, kind of follow the same line. But yeah, in this this version, like I showed in a previous video, it's just solid terracotta. So this is the same seed in 1.13 terrain generation, and yeah, you can see what I'm talking about here. The stone generates all the way up into that. And there's another thing, it might be a possible problem, is that these caves also generate into the stone. So this is Y level 79, and yeah, there's stone all the way up here. But yeah, in 1.7.2 terrain generation, the terracotta goes all the way down to Y level 60 or so. 60 or 61, it depends. Now it's to the point where it's actually getting some terracotta, and you can see there's just massive amounts dropping in here, like maybe a entire stack every time it does a run like this. And this isn't even as high as it can get. I think the mesa can generate up to about 100, and this is only 92. So the interesting part of this design is you'll notice that these walls come out this way, like there's an angle to the wall, and that's just to allow all the items to go straight down. Like if you did this on a flat face, a lot of the items, or a lot more of the items, would get stuck in these little corners here. So this boosts the efficiency, I think, probably maybe 3 to 4 times, just having a proper geometry like this. And then there's other considerations, like a TNT blows up here, then over here. So some of the terracotta blocks here are going to stop the TNT blast from destroying the entities in the explosion 1 over. And yeah, there's a 5 game tick delay between like this one and this one. Then there's another 5 tick game delay between this one and this one. And it goes up kind of at this angle when it does its thing. And I'll go down and look where the items are coming out. And I actually needed a ton of hoppers to do this. And actually on this note, 1.14, they made it 100% drop rate for these items. Like now it's only 1/4. And this is the rate with a pretty simple quarry like this. But yeah, in 1.14 there's a 100% drop rate, and this these hoppers can't even keep up with that much. So it's fast, for sure, when it works. I mean, it's a whole lot faster than like one of the crazy quarries like on SciCraft and stuff. But there is quite a bit of prep work involved. You have to carve out this water stream on the bottom for everything to fall into. And also it protects the ground underneath it. So yeah, you could use a tunnel bore to cut that out. And that would probably save you a lot of work. I haven't actually tried that, but I am going to run a test on that soon. Just a little bit different view here. Easier to see the angle that it's cutting out. And I have run this for quite a bit. I think I ran this for about 1,000 blocks or so, and I haven't had any issues. And I've also got a creative world where I tested this even more thoroughly with an even higher set of TNT dupers, and that works fine. So the challenge on this was to get the angle of the TNT coming down exactly right. And that's what this accomplishes. If you want to know the technicalities, it comes at about 0.2 radians, I think, which is just a slightly higher angle than if you just push the TNT straight forward without these bouncers here. And I'll show that a little bit later as well. And the rest of the flying machine is pretty simple. I didn't really optimize it yet because, well, for one thing, I'm not really good at flying machines. This is the first one that I've really built from scratch. So yeah, there's a better way to get like a 10-second timer or 6-second timer. Yeah, you do need a timer for this. You can't just run it super quick because the items down here will get destroyed by another TNT falling, the next set of TNT. So this might look like a lot of stuff up here, but I would say this is quite a lot simpler than really crazy quarries, because there's not much to it. Like all it does is push everything forward once, and that's the whole operation. The Cycroft quarries, those are absolutely insane. They would take me forever, but I think I could probably build this reasonably. I would feel comfortable building this in survival. And I'm not into slimestone, but I think, I think most people can handle this. And you might have to go one layer higher on this. I'm not sure. I haven't run this across the whole mesa. It just has to do with the amount of blocks that you're trying to blow up. So each of these are 7 high, and they move over 1 in this direction. So like 5 times 7 would be 35 blocks, and that's roughly the number of blocks that are here. But there are trees that stick out above the terrain, and you might have to worry about those. But yeah, in summary, I think this, I don't think this is really ready. I think you probably should know what you're doing or be able to improve it before you actually build it. Like you might want to move all this stuff over, or you might want to have some sort of controller like down here with slimestone, so you can control it from down here maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, even if you just leave it up here, it's not such a big deal. You could put like a fence gate here, and then just a rail cart. Just sit there and watch it. Then I guess you, if you could easily disable the machine, that would be really nice. Because then you could just sit and watch, and if a lake popped through, then you could just go deal with it without having to do any prep work on your world. And that's my stopper mechanism. You could, of course, use a furnace if you want. So, just the results from that. How much stuff did I get out of it? So 1 chest, like about 2. I don't know, maybe 4 chests, 4 double chests, all full of terracotta, which is pretty good. I think terracotta is one of the few things that you would really want a quarry for. I think quartz is another thing you might want one for, or maybe even endstone. But yeah, terracotta, with this terrain generation, you get a huge amount, and in 1.14, it's just insane. Now I'm going to try to use a simulated tunnel bore. I don't actually have a tunnel bore that'll do this. That's way too complicated for me. Comet 107, he said he was working on something that could do this, but for the purposes of this, you really need a sloped water stream, and that's what this accomplishes. So I'm going to try it now. I haven't actually tested this. So this is just going to summon TNT. Turn that off or it'll get very annoying. That should be on repeat. So I showed this in a previous video, but I just wanted to test it, how it would look here. So the water stream would be down on the bottom, and I guess you'd have to clean all this stuff up before you actually ran it. Or maybe there's another option. Maybe run another tunnel bore to clean that stuff up. I don't know. But it looks like maybe it might be a little bit too low, like this. But at least there is an automatic way to do most of the work here, because I imagine digging this by hand and like setting up beacons or whatever. Like you saw the other one, that's only a 2 high gap that I have here. So it's not too much digging. Actually, you only really need a 1 high gap to do it, but then you can't get in. So yeah, this would be an option to do it fully automatically. Then I guess you would kind of pick the lines and go along, fill this in. I did show this in my terracotta kind of similar video to this. Yeah, and dirt would be a problem. So this, yeah, who knows? I haven't tested this. This is I'm kind of hoping other people with more experience can um, maybe have some pointers or design machines to do this. Because, yeah, I think there is a tremendous motivation, especially with 1.14, to get something like this working. Now I'm just seeing if maybe running it a second time might help. I'm not sure. Like running the tunnel bore one separate time, although that is some work to rebuild it. So a couple of other thoughts for a collection system occurred to me. Like if you're already doing this pretty big tunnel bore that'll get you a nice big area, then you can do something. This is kind of what Cycraft did. This will not work, of course, just to show you what it looks like. So yeah, you can have a movable water stream kind of like this, I guess. I'm not absolutely sure it works in 1.13, or sorry, 1.13, but that is one possibility. Another one, this also won't work because I got some update order stuff wrong. But I think that they use this in Cycraft in their Nether Quarry. This is just going to break when I do this, but just to show. No, wait. Oh, this shouldn't be here. So yeah, all the rails pop off, but I think there is actually a way to do this. So this is a Cycraft collector, just to show you that this sort of concept actually works. I don't know how to do this, but it involves using armor stands to use the frosted ice effect. So I also wanted to show this farm in the snapshots, just because it gives that 100% item drop rate from TNT. So that will be 4 times the rate of in 1.13, and it still all seems to work fine. The TNT dupers still work, and yeah, just look at that. And it's too much for these hoppers to even handle. I will have a world download for this world, just so you can test this out for yourself. And how you start it is you just remove this obsidian block, and then just trigger this fence gate. I don't want to do it now because this is my my main copy of this. Yeah, so I just make copies of this and then run it, because setting this up is kind of challenging. And I've already prepared the area down here. So yeah, I prepared a pretty long, very long area actually for the water streams. And there's a couple lakes up here you might have to deal with, and there's a couple trees that it might possibly get stuck on over here. But yeah, I think it's good for you to just test it, and I've made it as easy as possible to do that. And I'm not sure if this is the correct command to use, but set world spawn, I think. That should make you just spawn over here. But if that doesn't work, then the coordinates will be down at the bottom. So 3909, then negative 468. And if you're wondering about all these structure blocks, that's this how I've been creating these. They make it easy, but I'll show that a little bit later. So now I'm in a creative world, and I'll just show you kind of the way I developed this, because it's really, really nice to do that this way, especially if you hate building these machines. So I've just got all these structure blocks, but one thing about them is that they include other structure blocks. So I could just keep loading these in, and they would load the additional structure block. So I loaded that one, then I can load the one above it, and that's going to create that structure block, etc., all the way up. So I think for this setup I need, maybe I'll just do 6. This is one higher than what I just showed in the real world. So then I've got another component to this, which is the vertical part. So the vertical part is separate from the horizontal part. So yeah, this is the main thing that activates the entire machine. And yeah, it's also spaced out by 1. That's why there's this little kink in the slime, and that's just to make sure they go up 7 and then over 1, and that's absolutely critical for this to work. You may not think so, but this is maybe I'll show a graph of why that's very important. But this part is more about. Sorry, I got interrupted there. But yeah, this part is more about just using the structure blocks in case you want to tweak this. So then once that's done, I just need to add 2 more slime blocks to connect the engine to the vertical pushers. And then I guess, for instance, I could, like if I decided to extend this out one more, I could start loading these up in that direction. But I'll just leave this one out for now. It's a lot easier just to do one vertical part. And then, as I showed before, just launch it like this. And the pumpkins, those will get destroyed. That's a pretty nice thing. Pumpkins, you can put rails on top of that. So you can have this machine fully assembled and it's not going to break when you load it in using the structure blocks. Just got to wait for it to get over here now. And I'm running it a lot faster than before because I don't have to worry about item destruction. Just getting these angles right. But yeah, if you look at them, you can see that they're making this arc. And that they come down at a certain angle towards the bottom. And that's the critical angle. So I'm trying to line up this angle with the angle of the machines here. So this angle here is actually 1:5 ratio, and this is 1:7, but that's just fine because they're coming in at a sharper angle than the machine is. So I don't think there's much of any chance they're going to hit the wall here. That's the problem, is if they hit the wall, they'll drop straight down, and then they won't blow up the right amount of blocks, and then the machine will just kind of gradually crash. Or not crash, but it'll gradually just stop working properly. You won't get the drops because they'll be stopped by something down here. I guess I could even demonstrate that. Actually, I've got a command block just to refill everything over here. So yeah, this is this might actually recover. I'm not sure. See in a second. So it looked like this did fully recover, but you probably want this to happen because then you wouldn't be getting your full effectiveness. And also, yeah, this part crashed against here, so it's totally stopped. But you could see before I actually interrupted it and screwed up everything, it was working just fine. This here is a version without those bouncer things on the end. And I was really hoping that I could just use a design like this because it's a lot simpler, a bit easier to build. But I found that this, as I was saying earlier, the angles just don't quite work out. The angle the TNT goes down is basically exactly the same as the angle where they start. So yeah, the line of the TNT explosions is the same as the angle of blocks that it actually cuts out. But I found that eventually bad things happen. Like eventually they start bouncing off a wall, and eventually it completely doesn't work anymore. Or it just leaves huge amounts of blocks down at the bottom. And if I go below, you can also see, like, these are pretty precisely aligned. I'm not exactly sure on the science of bouncing TNT off of slime. It's a very sensitive thing because, yeah, they're getting launched way up there, and they have a full 4 seconds to for that velocity to manifest itself in terms of position. So far it works. This might be acceptable, but I think in the context of actually building one of these machines, you want to be as sure as possible that it's not going to stop working. And right there, I think you could see it hit one of these little blocks jutting out. It recovered that time. But yeah, I have seen this fail. And the blast pattern doesn't seem quite as clean. I feel like it's, yeah, you can see one got stuck there. Two got stuck there. So that's the problem when you don't use the bouncers, is that the angle is just a bit more steep. Just a tiny bit more steep, but that makes all the difference. This here is the graph of the trajectory of the TNT. I'm just kind of estimating it. This is just an illustration. So this black line here would be the wall of terracotta, and this would be the trajectory of the TNT. And these are two examples. This is where it's just using this simple launcher mechanism, where it just launches the TNT straight out this way. And this one, it'll launch the TNT out, then push it up and go up. So that's the graph here. And then, yeah, the other graph is down here. And as you can see on this graph, this red line, the trajectory of the TNT, gets very close to the terracotta. So that's why it would have so many problems. But this one over here, it has a much better angle of attack. So this is why I chose this design. This is why I think this design is pretty much the only one that's at this level of simplicity that will work for a TNT Terracotta Quarry. This here is my testing rig for trying to make a vertical, like a vertical TNT quarry, where you would just have one single flying machine at the top, which I have not built because it's extremely hard to build. And yeah, so I just built this testing rig to see if the idea would actually work. So the TNT, they spawn up there, then there's a fence gate that can open and drop them down at different intervals of time so that they'll land at certain positions. And ideally it would be about every 7 blocks that that the TNT explodes, just using the right timings and everything. And I got it pretty close. I got it approximately correct. But the problem with this is that the TNT accelerates as it's going down, so it's difficult. Like it has to do with the square root of the distance that you want to go. I won't get into that equation, but basically it's nonlinear and it's hard to do. And the way I tried to accomplish this was just by having this big circuit over here. Yeah, so it's using this hopper chain where there's an item going through. Actually, one item like on this corner, then another one on this corner. So it's always working. And then, yeah, it comes out into these repeaters, this repeater array, and they're all on different timings, trying to approximate that timing. So I don't think it's really worth explaining too much about this because it's probably not going to work. But yeah, I thought that maybe you could have a central timer like this to do a lot of the timings on the thing, and then like turn this into a flying machine somehow, like a flying machine where it would dupe the TNT and then drop it, and then after it's done with one vertical layer, like one column, then it would move the machine forward. And if you are interested in testing this machine, this is the way you turn it off. You turn this on to turn it off. That basically does it in a safe way, which opens the fence gates, just allows the TNT to drop out. Then to turn it back on, you just give a quick pulse on this thing, and that'll restart it. So yeah, there will be a world download in case you want to test any of that. But yeah, the problem with this, I think the main problem is that so many items just get caught up here. Like I found that the actual rates for this are pretty bad. And I've got a command block down here. This just teleports the items to me using this kind of command. You would have to put your own name in there to make it work. But I guess we can see what the rates are. Just look at the items in my inventory. So I think it might give a stack, but that's actually a pretty low amount. And also, I guess another problem with this is that this is way higher than it really needs to be, and not high enough to do the amplified terrain, which basically goes up to Y level 255. So yeah, this might be possible. If somebody's really clever and they can figure out a flying machine to do this, then more power to them. Another part of the testing for this and development was just to find the optimal interval between TNT explosions, like the amount of time between them. So I've got this command here just to set the interval there. Then I can just run that like that. I should show the scoreboard for this. So yeah, look over into the corner. You can see the ticks are going up rapidly, and then they get reset back to 0 when they get up to the interval. And then what I did with this is I created a graph from all the data. So I would test like all the 3s, like 3 interval, and then I would go up to 5. And I'm actually running this test now. So part of the testing, part of the way this test works is, so it's going to clear my inventory at the beginning. And then when it's done, then I can just do another clear on my inventory and see how many items got into there. Because I've got another command block down there to transport the items myself. I find that this is a pretty good way to do it because I don't have to count any stacks. But I did find some surprising data from this, and I'll show that in a second. So it's finished the test now, and that's 1633 items, and I just compared that relatively to other tests that I get. And yeah, this down here, this is just a bunch of command blocks to basically moves the armor stand over this way from right to left. Then when it gets a certain distance away, it teleports it back to the beginning, and also moves it forward one step. And there's probably a couple other things I'm forgetting, but that stuff is kind of boring. So this is the graph I was referring to. And what I found is that when you have very low game ticks between the explosions, the yield is actually quite good. But then when you get around to about 15 or so, they're a bit less, like maybe 20 to 30% less. But then if you go way up to a very high delay between explosions, like upwards of 30, which would be 1.5 seconds, which is extremely long, then your yields go up even more. But I don't think it's really worth making such a huge delay between explosions, because that would, without a radically different design of machine, because that would just be so much harder. But yeah, the machine I have is about 5 game ticks, so that's about this point right here. But I think my machine actually has an advantage because I've got things skewed in such a way that there's less chance of TNT blowing up an item just because another piece of terracotta would be blocking it. So I hope this wasn't too much information in one single video. It really was a lot of research that went into making this work. So that's why I included all of it. And I think I'd rather just make one big video with all the information and not a lot of separate videos that may get ignored. So that's why I did it this way. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.